Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining this live. I'm excited today that you joined us, whether you're live or on team replay. And so today I'm here with Jordan Boogaard, and we wanted to talk about how you kind of keep the season bright for your employees. And I wanted to just do a quick intro if you haven't known either of us, if you don't know either of us. So I'm Tiffany Castano, and I am CEO and founder of Zephyr, which is an HR consultancy. I'm based in Pittsburgh, supporting small to medium businesses across the U.S. with their culture, building their infrastructures, and that's super, super fun. And I'm joined today by a partner here at Eddy, Jordan Boogaard, but I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Awesome. Thanks, Tiffany. Super excited to join you again today. It's been a few months since we've done a LinkedIn Live together, so this is going to be great. But yeah, my name's Jordan Boogaard. I've been in the payroll and HR space for about 15 years. I've worked at like ADP, Heartland, started my own company, and then merged with Eddy 3 years ago. But I'm like the HR evangelist, and then I primarily do sales at Eddy. And so I just love engaging with customers and finding out what makes them tick and how we can help them retain their employees and make their lives easier. So today's topic's perfect for me. I'm excited.
I love that. We always have so much fun when we chat. So if you brought some questions or you brought a friend, I do have my holiday mug here, special for you all, because we're talking some holiday cheer. But really, engagement is year round, and that is a passion topic, and why Jordan and I always have so much fun talking about this, and why we love bringing these LinkedIn Lives and other opportunities forward, because this should really be, we're talking about holiday cheer, right? Keeping the season bright for your employees, how to take care of them, gifting them with care. At the same time, this should be a year-round effort. Otherwise, if you only do it during the holidays or you only do it during certain times, you're going to probably not have a very engaged team, and you're probably going to lose some folks. And we don't want that for you. So that's why we wanted to have this conversation. Jordan, I know this was, first of all, happy anniversary. I can't believe I haven't told you this. I saw you have an anniversary with Eddy. Speaking of rewards and recognition.
I can't believe it's been 3 years already. So time goes by so fast. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I know you thought this would be a great chat. You're always full of good ideas. So do you want to say like what sparked this for you, or what do you think is like top of mind for you in terms of making sure we take care of our teams?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, honestly, for the past 6 to 8 months, I've done a lot of presentations and met with lots of groups, and like they're all struggling to hire, right? Like they're all quite, like, I can't find employees. I'm not paying them enough. I can't do this. And then once I hire them, they either don't show up to the interview or the first day of work, or I'm losing them 3 or 4 months later, right? And so I think that's the main thing that sparked it. And as I thought about this and was kind of thinking back to the last, few months of presentations and talking about this, it all goes back to like dating. Hiring employees is kind of like dating, right? I mean, it's crazy when you're in that interview process. That's kind of the dating stage, right? You're like asking those questions. You're trying to, like, if you're a dating profile, you spotlight your best qualities and you post your best pictures, and then all of a sudden you get the offer letter, you sign it and stuff like that, or you go on that first date and like now you're engaged, right? The offer letter, we could like kind of symbolize that as an engagement. Well, now after you're engaged and you get married and they're a full-time employee, how do you keep that spark alive? And I think it's very similar to how do you keep that employee engaged, is how do you keep that spark alive in your personal, relationship and stuff like that. Any thoughts on that? I mean, that's kind of how I've related it lately.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it is an ongoing thing. And I know we talked about this a bit in our last live too, but some people, I think it's easy to throw money at it, or it's easy to do, what we call performative measures versus really digging in, getting to know your employees. What makes them happy? What are their cultures and traditions for holidays? And I think so many times we stick with what we know, and we're really familiar with those things, or we're afraid of how somebody might react, or we're risk averse, right? We're afraid to try those new things. But that's where you can get creative and allow your employees to help shine and work on projects, take on projects where you can give stretch assignments. And those things feed really nicely into individual development plans to help them grow and learn, to enrich their roles. And I think those are the things sometimes I think we forget about when it comes to rewards and recognition and the easy way, I think the free way even. And we're always looking for ways to, kind of toss some money at it, because that's not everybody's motivated that way. Not all of us are motivated by money. I am intrinsically motivated. And so
Yeah.
knowing how your employees are motivated is a good thing too. If I don't like public recognition, which I overly don't, you'd be surprised maybe because I'm so extroverted. But if that doesn't work for me and you're doing that, I'm going to be real uncomfortable. And it's not that you're not giving me, those accolades that I should be appreciated, but that can make people uncomfortable. So it's like
For
getting
sure.
in to know your team. What other thoughts do you have on that, or other things you see?
Yeah, no, I would. I think we're on the same page on that one, Tiffany. I mean, honestly, my management style when I'm managing people is connect, coach, and hold accountable.
Mm,
And so it's right from that get go. When I first meet an employee, I like to connect with them, find out like what makes them tick. Where's their favorite place to shop? What do they like to do outside of work? Are they a family person? Are they an outdoorsy person? What kind of things that get them excited about life above and beyond outside of work? Because you truly have to know those kind of things to like appreciate them. So when anniversaries come around or birthdays or maybe significant others' birthdays, like it's recognizing those things that you truly care about them and that they're not just like another number in the fold, right? And
mhm.
so yeah, it's interesting because again, relating it back to dating, like I've been married to my wife for 15 years now, and so we have 4 kids together, and we're super busy. But like it goes back to those basic principles that like I always try and take her on a date every Friday night, like Friday night's date night,
Mhm.
and that's how we can reconnect and make sure we have that spark alive and stuff like that too. And it's like, what do you do inside your company to make sure that you have that engagement and that you're still connecting with them on a daily basis? Because I think something that we don't talk about a lot, and especially it's super relevant now after COVID. Like I'm working from home today, and we have a lot of remote workers, and so engagement not only in the workplace but like with remote workers is difficult as well. And so I'm curious on your thoughts there, how you like provide that strategy for engagement across the board, even if they're not at the office every single day.
Yeah, and I think, that goes back to too what, how much you know your team, making sure that you're getting them together because what I saw and you probably did too, even pre-COVID is that remote workers, folks who weren't in the office, you have these distributed teams, they were always kind of left out and left
Yeah,
behind and we forget that. I was at an event last week and I was just like, "Oh, this feels really awkward because we're eating the snacks and we people knew that this event would be hybrid, but one of the things that I know people do is maybe you send a snack to that person. So it's
yeah,
not like, let me sit on video all awkward while you all eat, or people start walking away from the camera. Addressing folks in the room, who aren't in the room, I guess, if they are
yeah,
remote, is really important too. And I've been guilty of it. It's just like you're so focused on who's in the room and you forget, oh, wait, we have someone, joining us hybrid. And so just being really intentional about that and practice makes progress, as I say. I don't like
sure.
perfectionism. So I have to work out of that. And it's definitely something that you want to be able to do. And there's so many things that you can connect in with folks, even if they're remote. Having them come visit the office, having the organization support that. And people love that. I have clients who love and they make a big deal out of celebrating when someone is coming in, if they're remote. And it shouldn't always be that the remote person has to come in, right? Like that should work both ways. Have the team make it fun and let them
Yeah.
go and visit other places too.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I think it's just making everyone aware, right?
Yeah.
At Eddy, like obviously that's where I live basically, right? Is that Eddy from 8 to 5? That's where I am most of the time. And so we do a lot of Zoom meetings, and there's occasions like today I'm not feeling the greatest, so I'm working from home, so I don't want to get anyone else sick. But I've got many meetings today that is going to be engagement with my employees at work, and so just making sure that they know that I'm on the Zoom call, that they have the camera there, that I can ask her questions and stuff like that. And so I think it's opening up those opportunities to making everyone aware of where people are at and engaging them in those conversations. So we'll pause and we'll like look at the chat conversations, and be like, oh, Tom or whatever, he's working remotely. He had a question. Let's make sure we're answering those, and recognizing that they're still there even though they're not in the space, and that like again, I guess awareness is probably the biggest thing on that one. So
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. And I think that, that's one of those things we should be using, automation and our tech to help us be able to do that. Not that it replaces that one on one time, but one of the things that I do with clients and that I've seen them do is hosting office hours. So sometimes somebody shows up to a virtual room and they're there to help support their teammate, or they're, if you're in leadership, supporting your team and making sure you carve out that space. And one thing that I feel so strongly about is not just like blowing off the one-on-ones, because
yeah.
they're sometimes the easiest thing to move on the calendar, but making sure that you're intentional about that is so important, because it means so much to your employees. Hi, Enrique. Hi, I'm I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. So thank you all for joining. If you have any thoughts or questions on how you bring holiday cheer to your teams, let us know. We are streaming live to LinkedIn Live and to YouTube. So really excited to have everybody here and just share some holiday cheer with each other and your best practices. Give the gift of giving. We love that. um, what else is like sparked up for you, either at Eddy or fun family traditions that you're doing, Jordan? Or what are some creative ideas that you've seen out there for employers to really recognize their teams?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that a lot of people have done some crazy things. I was talking to my friend. He works at a company, a tech company here in Utah called Job Nimbus, and every single year they do a getaway. This is extreme. This is extreme. Don't get me wrong, but they go to Mexico every year, and they take their clients with them and their employees.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
it's kind of like they're off-site and they have to earn it, but like it's their Christmas tradition, and it's not like as expensive as you would think, because the amount of money you spend on swag and different things like that, it can pile up, right?
Hmm.
And so what I've learned is they've talked about like, hey, we really focus on employee retention. And so I was reading on Gallup just this morning actually, and they say the average cost to replace an employee is 150% of their salary. And so to replace them is super expensive. And so he kind of did a reality check with me when I talked to this buddy of mine. And he's like, if we keep our retention down and our turnover low, he's like, think about how much more money we're saving. And then we can push it towards incentives like this, like doing a trip. He's like, because if I take an average employee that's making $60,000, $70,000 a year, and it costs me $150,000 to replace it, that's like $80,000 or $90,000. That's $20,000 or $30,000 extra by retaining those employees that I can push towards employee engagement. And so
Mm.
it kind of put it in perspective that like it really isn't that expensive to do some things like that. It's more expensive to try and retrain and rehire those employees. And so it was kind of like an eye opener to think on that level, if that makes sense, to
Yeah.
really hone in and focus on like, hey, if I do everything I can to keep the team that I have and make sure I'm hiring great people up front, the more I can engage and put money into like training them and offsites and programs like this than just trying to go hire someone new every 3 to 4 months. So
Yeah. Yeah.
lots
That's the
of cool
thing.
stuff in that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to Mexico every year either,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Right. But it's like these are the things too. It's like where you can involve your team. And so many times we see the ugly Christmas sweater, right? Or the ugly holiday sweater, or the potlucks, which don't get me wrong, I do miss that from working in a
Sure.
big team, and bringing my little favorite snacks that people loved and enjoying other people's favorite snacks. But there's, as you know, big on diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. And so how do you fold in that to include everyone? One of
Yeah.
the things that I'm seeing too is, as relates to, holidays, typically we see very US centric holidays. And so a lot of companies, I'm working with some clients now, and they're deciding, what are those holidays we want? Can we shrink those down to allow for some floater holidays to be able to, navigate? Because obviously it's not going to be feasible to host every holiday. There are a lot of wonderful holidays out there. We love that. But being able to be intentional about the policies you shape, even, and being
Yeah.
inclusive and asking your employees, well, what do you think? Get them involved in these processes. You can have cultural food days, and you could do even cultural bingo, right? Like help people learn about each other. And I think I have one of my colleagues. She does cookie art, and she does it. She's, it's kind of like anti-racist, but she does it with cookies. And so she does that because it's low threat for people to have a conversation around food-centered items. And I just love those ideas. I think it takes a little bit of that intimidation out of it for employees too. So we have to recognize too that it's not just U.S. holidays. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, right? And so we want to make sure that we're doing that in an inclusive way too.
That's fun. No, I love that. Yeah, one fun thing we do at Eddy is we do what's called a pekakucha. And so it's a tradition from another country in Asian culture. And so once someone's been hired at Eddy, well, the first thing we do is we do it's 2 minutes. And so it's 2 minutes of questions. We can ask them whatever we want, and we try and ask them to answer honestly, right? And so they'll go up to the front of the room and like our weekly group huddle. And there's 60, 70 people, and they're like just drilling with questions like, when was the last time you did this? Harry Potter, Star Wars. Like, it's just these really fun, creative questions. But then about 2 months later, we do a pekakucha, and they get to tell us about themselves and their family and what they like to do and their life experiences. And it's only 2 to 3 minutes. They're really short, and it's kind of a quick little video that they do put together for us. But it's been really fun to kind of implement stuff like that to get your employees outside of work and their families and what they love to do. And so anyways, those have been really fun cultural stuff, because as you do stuff like that, you truly get to know each other and you have more fun together at work. So it's been awesome.
It's so true. And thank you for bringing in the team building aspect of it. I think that's so important. And even when you're doing that, considering that maybe I'm afraid of axes and those types of things. I don't maybe want to go axe throwing, right? So making sure that you get the team's input and get some creative ideas. I worked on one team, and we had a calendar for the whole month, and we would start before the holidays and fill in little different things where, maybe our director would go around with a little cart of holiday, little cheer in the cup. Not NA, of course. And being able to, that gave her the opportunity to be visible. And we as a team got to do that. And we would ask our stakeholders out there in the business too, what's going on. And so that was a lot of fun as well. I'm seeing Enrique with some comments here. Team building is so critical for the culture. Absolutely. And those core values. Great point, Enrique. Are you living out your core values in the holidays that you have, in the practices and policies that you have too? I think that's so important. And he wants tacos at Tacos al Pastor. Yes, please. Those are delicious. I might have some this weekend. I'm going out with some friends, so that'll be good. But he makes a good point too, that not a lot of employers do that. And what matters most is their pockets and not well-being and mental health of the employees. I unfortunately can attest from previous toxic experiences too, Enrique. And that's why we're here having this chat. We want to hear from you in terms of what makes this a good culture for you, and what are you seeing out there? What are you hearing? And so we've shared some of that, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. What I've seen though too is this hyper focus on this right now, on engagement and retention, and the power of having a conversation cannot be understated. One client, I actually had a conversation with someone that they were going to exit the organization, and I was having a conversation with senior leadership, and we were talking about it, and people were kind of speculating on why this might be. And I'm like, I'm just going to ask, is this a final decision, right? Get down to the nitty gritty, chuck the elephant out of the room and really understand, but also have things like fun ways to ask questions and do state interviews. Those are really, really impactful. You don't want to find out when that person's 1 foot out the door, or worse, out the door, right? Make sure that you have strategies along the way to keep them.
So I've got a question for you. We talked about one-on-ones, we talked about exit interviews a little bit, and just kind of being engaged, but what is the best way to do that, I guess, in an organization with your experience? Is it weekly one-on-ones? Is it conversations via, your chat, whatever if it's instant messenger, whatever maybe? Help me understand your vision in regards to one-on-ones, I guess, and how to stay engaged with your employees that way.
I love that. Thank you. I love a good one-on-one. And the thing is, we always, the image that conjures to mind is weekly, right? I would say at least weekly. But there are times, with the team where I've had to do that 2, 3 times a week. Does it take extra time? Yes, that is what comes with leadership. And I've heard people say it takes too much time, or my boss wants this other thing. I have to push this aside. And it's like, no, you don't. Part of being a leader is to make sure that you are present for your team. And so I think, also with that, not making it just your agenda, making it, and my husband does this really, really well. I'm not just saying that because he's my husband, but I'll pop past his meetings. I can overhear them because we both work remotely primarily. And so he always, is asking the team, like, what do you have to talk about? Here's what I have. Some of those are probably aligned. I frankly approach it the same way. And I think that's a good best practice, because I've also seen where it's like all driven by the leader. And it's like, well, now I can't get a word in edgewise. And that can be intimidating for an employee. We have to recognize there are power
Yeah.
dynamics there. So I think setting the agenda, doing that with your employee, you can do that in like a Slack or a Teams. There can be a Google Share Drive, whatever that is, for those conversations, so that you have transparency and visibility, making sure you hold to those. And you don't always have to have them at your desk or in a conference room either, right? Go to lunch, go have
Yeah.
coffee, or go take a walk. There's people, I've done walking one-on-ones, and those are super fun too. So just not feeling like you have to be stuck to the same ways. I would say with anything, feel free to be creative and outside of the box.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like there has to be an accountability piece, right? We
Hmm.
all have performance metrics that we have to hit or obtain, or projects we need to complete. And so usually with those one-on-ones, I love when it's broken down to like 3 to 5 like key metrics, right? You have those goals, you set them every single week, and then you're going in. And when you get to the one-on-one, I think, both parties need to be ready for that, right? So you
Hmm.
go over those goals and metrics, you go through them pretty quickly, but then it really should be opened up to like, hey, what's on your plate? What are you struggling with? What can we help you with? And if that's, going on a walk, like you mentioned, or taking them to lunch and doing something a little bit more fun than, sitting in an office or doing a Zoom call, I love that, because yes, the accounting piece always has to be a factor because you're a business and you have to make
Hmm.
money and all that jazz. But if you can make it more engaging and fun by, opening it up to like, what can I help you with out personally, and what are you struggling with, and what obstacles can I remove? I think that just goes a long way to showing that you care, and that it's not just about those key objectives. So
Yeah. And removing those barriers, those obstacles is so critical. And one of the things that I've done as a leader and that I coach other leaders to do is really take the time out to ask the question of, how can I support you? How can I better support you? And some people are resistant to that because it's such a broad question, right? And they're like, well, what if they say that I'm not doing it well enough? Great. That's what we call feedback. Feedback is a gift, right? We're in the giving season. And you have to be open to receiving too, right? I think
sure,
it's so important to that constructive feedback. And I think in one-on-ones, in performance evaluations and exits, everything, we have to be open and ready to receive that. It truly is a gift. Now we want it to be constructive, right? We don't want people like
yeah,
burning down bridges and all that stuff, but it's really important to be open to receiving that. That's how we get creative, we innovate. It's frankly what is going to engage your team and keep them the most productive. And so many times that gets missed. And for some good reasons, because we're nice people, we're on the nice list, and we want to make sure that we are doing what we need to do, and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But we grow through sometimes making mistakes. So making sure that if there are those obstacles, you're removing those out of the way. And part of that obstacle could be like that psychological safety for
yeah,
people to feel like I can share I made a mistake. Please help me work through this. So
for sure.
important. So, so important.
I love it. No, honestly, I mean, I opened it up when we first started talking today. Is that I've been sick, right? Like I got a sinus infection this week's been kind of miserable that way. But the show must go on, right? You still have to work, you have to perform, and so
You're a
you got
trooper.
to go. But it kind of brings me to the topic that's super relevant now, as we talk about one-on-ones. And I didn't plan on going this direction, but I'm super curious. Mental health, right? And so yes, you can talk about employees and engagement and understanding what's going on. But like me, for example, I'm super transparent. I'm an extrovert, right? Like I love to be around people. I love to chat. But not everyone's like Jordan, right? Or not everyone's like Tiffany being an extrovert. And so, for example, like my wife, she's a total introvert, and like unless she totally trusts you, she's not going to tell you anything. And so there's employees that are the exact same way. So
Mhm.
how do you connect with those employees and understand if like mentally they're okay as well. It's like what questions and what things can we do to open up that conversation to like really build that trust to work together that we can all be mentally stable as well, you know? So
Oh my
curious on
gosh.
your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's, I just was telling somebody the other day that it is a part of DEIB. Our mental health, we are
Yeah,
whole people when we come into work. And my goal, and I know yours, is that people leave whole at the end of the day. And so asking questions like, how can I support you, is really important. Getting to know people, understanding, not only, and it's not only a leader's responsibility. I always say that peer to peer,
yeah,
it's very important. If someone seems like they're not their usual self, maybe they're super extroverted like the two of us, and they seem, kind of down, or they're making statements that, that typically they wouldn't make, or they're making mistakes, or they're starting to be
yeah,
absent. You absolutely need to be present enough as a team, as a leader, to be able to recognize those things and to just ask the question. And I think asking, are you okay? But understanding that some people will say, I'm fine.
yeah,
And understanding also that if they say no, you have to be prepared to either come with some resources.
sure.
Maybe, you're not the right person, and maybe they need to talk to human resources. Maybe you can refer them to the employee assistance program. Maybe there's some other type of, financial support that they're needing. Maybe they're struggling financially and you can help them. And it's not about prying, but it's about making sure they're in a good space. And so many times we hear people just say, I'm fine, or you're passing in the hall, Zoom room, what have you.
Yeah,
And we just say we're fine. We check the box. That's no different with the rest of DEIB. We can't just check that box. We have to make sure that we're asking the right questions and not just asking for the sake of asking. So making sure you're drilling down another level with people. And I've had that. I've even said, like, are you sure? Because, like you can tell sometimes if someone has been
yeah.
crying, and I'll say, we don't have to talk about this right now, but know that I'm a safe space. So you have to create that trusting environment from the beginning for people to walk through that door.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, honestly, like it goes all the way back to where we started from, right? Like it's like that dating profile. You have all your best characters and traits, and everything looks good, and you accept the offer and you jump in, and you're like, super excited about the position. But then you have to continue that engagement. You have to continue to make sure, excuse me, that person loves what they're doing, right? And that they're excited to be at work, and then on your side, I think it's that you show that you care, right? And so it's interesting as we kind of have this conversation. I think one-on-ones, even though you're holding people accountable, I think that does show that you care, right? Because you're holding them accountable to like hitting their goals financially, personal, whatever it may be. And so sometimes things can be seen as like negative, but I think it all depends on how you view it, right? And
Yeah.
so holding people accountable, I think, can be a super positive thing, but it can also build that relationship of trust that you're doing whatever it takes to help them hit those objectives, right? And if,
Hmm.
if you can see that your manager or your supervisor is working with you to like hit those goals and like they care about you personally, um, again, it goes back to that word care. I think that goes a long way. And so I think we're close to time here, but I mean, are you guys doing anything for the holiday season? I know everyone doesn't celebrate Christmas, but do you guys do like a holidays party this time of year or?
I'm mostly going to them. So I'm very fortunate that I get invited to a lot of holiday cheer. And so I look forward to seeing, client spaces and meeting their stakeholders and sharing a snack and a drink with them. And it's just really good relationship building. And that's what
Awesome.
Jordan and I are talking about here. It's really important to build those relationships at the end of the day. Gifting people with your time is huge. And so I think the fact that I demonstrate that for people and that they're willing to be inclusive and welcoming is very it's just a treat. And so I really love it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the company party next week, and so we're fun. We get together. We actually have there's a guy on our team that's a DJ, and so
Nice.
he's gonna DJ the party, which will be super fun. We bring in a caterer, and then there's
Oh.
always presents and stuff like that, and so we have a good time together. But I think that's it's not just Eddy. I mean, but like a lot of the companies I work for, they've done a really good job of that cultural experience and having fun no matter what we're doing, whether it's Christmas time or summer and doing outdoor barbecues and things like that. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I mean, this holiday, I love this holiday season. I used to consider myself more of like a bah humbug, just because I focus on like the cost and what it's gonna do to my pocket, kind of things. But obviously, over time, I've gotten over that, and it's been really fun. Like this week, we went on a Polar Express train ride with the kids,
Oh,
and so
fun.
that was super fun. But no, I love this time of year and the cheer that it brings to it, and everyone's out there focusing on doing other kind things for other like we have a nonprofit that we're focusing on. We've helped like 70 families this year, and so
Mm.
just doing stuff like that and helping those that are in need has been my favorite time of year to do stuff like that. So I love this season. So.
Yeah, yeah. Love that you touched on volunteering. That's definitely a way to care for your employees. You have a DJ in the house. Way to be inclusive and know enough to say, hey, think about what that would do if you bring in someone from the outside, like, hello, I'm here, right? Like, so thank you all for joining this conversation. Thank you, Jordan, for always coming with some spark. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining even when you're sick. Happy Eddy anniversary again. And what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they have more questions?
Tiffany, before I even say that, you're truly the best. Like you're always positive, you're always happy. I love hanging out with you. But yeah, the easiest way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Just shoot me a message. I even have my cell phone number on my LinkedIn page, so call me, text me, whatever. I'm a pretty open book. But yeah, if there's anything I can do to help you out, that's my number one thing is help other people. So I
I
love it.
love it. I love it. Well, thanks for the gift of you and all of you who joined live here and on Team Replay. And we'll see you soon. Send your thoughts and questions. And of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn too. I hope you feel better, Jordan. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.